Something huge is happening on the high seas. For decades, the supercarrier was this untouchable symbol of American naval power. But that's changing. China's naval program is closing the gap, and they're doing it fast. At the heart of it all is a revolutionary new kind of warship. Okay, let's dive right in.
So, the key to this whole revolution is a piece of tech called EMALS. The easiest way to think about it is like a giant, super powerful electromagnetic slingshot. Now, the old way was with steam catapults, but EMALS, it's a smoother, much more powerful, and way more controlled launch. And what that means is you can launch a whole range of aircraft. We're talking heavy strike fighters, big surveillance planes, even lightweight drones. It is an absolute game changer.
And get this, in a huge demonstration of this new tech, China's brand new supercarrier, the Fujian, launched 3 completely different advanced aircraft, one right after another. A stealth fighter, a heavy strike jet, and a crucial eye-in-the-sky surveillance plane. Now, this wasn't just some routine test. This was a massive statement that China had officially joined a very, very exclusive club. But believe me, this didn't happen overnight.
To really understand how we got here, you have to rewind the clock. China's road to becoming a carrier power was a long one. We're talking a patient, sometimes frustrating 40-year journey.
The real turning point, the moment everything changed, was the Taiwan Strait crisis back in 1996. The United States sailed 2 full carrier strike groups right into the waters near Taiwan, and for Beijing, it was a massive wake-up call. It showed them, in no uncertain terms, just how powerless their Navy was against American sea power, and that moment lit a fire under them, solidifying this belief that China absolutely had to get carriers of its own.
And this timeline, it just lays it all out perfectly, doesn't it? You can see their step-by-step approach. From those early ambitions in the 70s to that wake-up call in 96, they made a huge move. They bought a rusting, unfinished Soviet carrier hull, the Varyag. Then they spent years, just years, studying it, refitting it, and learning. Finally, in 2012, it became the Liaoning, their training ship. From there, they built their first homegrown carrier, the Shandong, and now the cutting-edge Fujian. Every single step was a deliberate building block.
You see, at first, their whole strategy was about defense. They had this concept of blue soil. They saw the waters right off their coast as a literal extension of their homeland that had to be protected. The Navy was just a coastal defense force, not a global one. But that 1996 crisis, it totally upended that way of thinking.
But here's where it gets interesting. Even as China was pouring billions into this carrier program, a fierce debate was happening behind the scenes within its own strategic circles. Were these gigantic, expensive ships even the right investment for the 21st century?
And that really is the multi-billion-dollar question, isn't it? In an age of super-advanced submarines and hypersonic missiles, are these floating airfields a smart bet, or are they just giant, vulnerable targets waiting to be hit? So, one side of the argument, which you see here from a post on the Sino Defense Forum, is that China should be focusing on the things that hunt carriers, specifically nuclear-powered attack submarines. The logic is actually pretty simple. Why build the target when you can build the weapon that sinks the target?
Then you've got another powerful argument that zeroes in on new tech. As another forum user points out, hypersonic missiles, which travel at incredible speeds, are seen by many as the ultimate carrier killers. So if you can take out a carrier from hundreds of miles away with a missile that's nearly impossible to stop, does it really make sense to keep building them? But the pro-carrier argument is just as strong. I mean, for a global economic powerhouse like China, protecting your trade routes and projecting influence way beyond your own shores is absolutely vital. And as this poster argues, only carriers give you that go anywhere, stay anywhere kind of power. That's something you really need to secure your sea lanes, especially in today's competitive world.
And this whole internal debate is happening while an even bigger story is unfolding. A massive, tectonic shift in global industrial power. And it's completely redrawing the world's naval map.
And make no mistake, China's carriers are already pushing out. By late 2022, their first carrier, the Liaoning, was operating deep in the Pacific, way out near Guam. That's over 1,000 miles from home. This was not a training exercise in their backyard. This was a real demonstration of a true blue-water, long-range Navy.
Okay, but it's important to keep all this progress in perspective. Let's talk about operational tempo. A U.S. Navy Ford-class carrier can generate something like 160 flights or sorties in a single day. China's best carrier, the Shandong, is getting up to around 60. So look, they are learning and improving incredibly fast, but there's still a massive experience gap they need to close.
But Where that gap isn't just closing but is actually reversing is industrial capacity. And the number that tells this story is, well, it's just staggering. China's shipbuilding capacity is now estimated to be 232 times larger than that of the United States.
To put that number in perspective, check this out. China has 13 active naval shipyards. The US has 2. In fact, just one of those Chinese shipyards has more capacity than all American shipyards combined. This incredible industrial power is the engine that's driving this whole naval expansion.
So this new reality is forcing a major rethink over in Washington. Some U.S. strategists are now pushing for a policy called retrench to reload, basically pulling American forces back from the front lines to positions that are easier to defend in places like Guam and Australia. The idea is to buy time to rebuild both industrial and military strength.
So, with this historic shift happening right before our eyes, what does the future of this new naval race actually look like? What are the challenges ahead, and really, what are the ultimate stakes?
This chart here really puts China's progress in sharp focus. You can see the steady evolution, right? From the smaller ski jump carriers to the huge 80,000-ton Fujian with that advanced EMALS system. But you can also see that the U.S. Ford class is still in a league of its own when it comes to sheer size and the number of aircraft it can carry. The gap is definitely closing, but it's not closed yet.
And, the PLA Navy still has some pretty big hurdles to clear. Their whole carrier program is barely a decade old, so they just don't have those generations of experience. All their carriers are conventionally powered, which limits their range and how long they can stay at sea compared to the nuclear-powered U.S. carriers. And maybe most critically, they're still seen as weak in anti-submarine warfare, which could leave their prized carriers really vulnerable.
So here's the bottom line. What we're witnessing is the end of an era. For the first time since the Second World War, U.S. naval supremacy is being seriously challenged. As China's fleet keeps growing, fueled by that unmatched industrial base, the question we're all left with isn't really if a power shift is happening anymore. It's how far will it go, and is it in fact inevitable?